At 5.1%, inflation is at a 20-year high. That's the highest since the GST was introduced. Just as important, the trim mean, that's the underlying inflation rate, surged to 3.7%. So that's well beyond the Reserve Bank's preferred 2 to 3% target band. Now, the government has to explain the cost of living rises, and the RBA has to explain why rates haven't moved sooner. I spoke earlier with Treasurer Josh Frydenberg. Josh Frydenberg, many thanks for your time. Can I just say, inflation 5.1%, is this the number that you really need as a Treasurer campaigning on a superior economic management in this election campaign? Is it really the number that you needed today?
Well, as you know, international factors are driving these higher inflation numbers, not just seen in Australia, but indeed around the rest of the world. Food, housing and transport costs. We've seen through COVID that freight costs have increased fivefold in some cases. We've seen, because of the war in Ukraine, that there's been a spike in oil prices and gas prices and wheat prices and broader commodity prices. And we know that here in Australia at 5.1%, yes, inflation is higher than expected, but it's significantly below what we've seen in other countries. In Canada, it's 6.7%. In New Zealand, it's 6.9%. In the United Kingdom, it's 7%. In the United States, it's 8.5%. So
but Treasurer, can I jump in there and say
sticking to our economic plan.
Yeah, sure. But can I jump in there and say that the problem is that the voters don't live in other countries, they live here. And so they're seeing things like the 5.6% jump in fruit and juice prices. They're seeing 4.9% in fruit, 7.6% in beef, 11% in fuel prices. So as a result, they're feeling the pinch themselves right now. And they turn back to you and you tell them that you are the superior economic manager. And yet they all know, because they can see, that there are mortgage rate rises coming as well, which are going to further crimp their cost of living.
Well, Ross, as you know, we provided a significant, comprehensive and clear package of relief measures for cost of living in the budget, and that is already making a difference. So fuel excise has been cut by half, and that is seeing a family with 2 cars that they fill up once a week, $30 better off. We have also made medicines more affordable and accessible to 2.4 million Australians. From today, $250 payments are being received by 6 million Australians, including many pensioners, veterans, carers and others on income support. And we've provided an extended low and middle income tax offset of $420, which will be available to people who earn low and middle incomes. More than 10 million Australians will be available to them when they put in their tax return from the 1st of July. So we have put in place measures to address this cost of living pressures, but they are real, and it is the number one topic around the kitchen tables of Australia.
OK, but then, again, you're the Treasurer. You won't speak about the Reserve Bank and its policies. It's independent, I get that. Let's talk about money markets. Money markets say there's potentially 10 or 12 interest rate rises coming over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. I mean, this is many hundreds of dollars per month out of most ordinary people's pockets. Now, again, they're going to have to wear those costs. Isn't it right for you as a Treasurer in this election campaign to be square with those people, to tell them what's coming, that in fact that life is going to be more difficult into the future, no matter which side of politics actually wins this election?
Well, I have said publicly numerous times that interest rates will normalise over the coming period, as we've seen in the rest of the world. But I've also pointed out that these higher inflation numbers underline the importance of strong economic management. And one of the key differences between us and the Labor Party is that the Labor Party have $300 billion plus of aspirational increased spending commitments. Now, that would put unnecessary upward pressure on interest rates and inflation, whereas in contrast, we have brought to an end those emergency economic support payments when it was right to do so. And you and I have discussed previously, I was criticised when I ended JobKeeper after 12 months. Anthony Albanese said, in his own words, the economic roof would come crashing down. Yet 120,000 more jobs were created in the 3 months after JobKeeper ended. So too on the COVID disaster payments. Katie Gallagher, the Shadow Finance spokesperson, was saying it was too early to end those. The Labor Party will always spend more. That's why they'll always tax more. This is a reminder to all Australians of the importance of strong economic management that we are providing and that we will continue to provide into the future.
OK, but then Jerome Powell, the chair of the US Federal Reserve, the equivalent of our Reserve Bank, last week gave a pretty open warning that if they don't get their settings right, there is a risk of a recession in the world's largest economy, in the United States. Surely that has an impact here. Is there a similar warning here in Australia that if we don't get the settings right, if interest rates rise too fast, that there is a risk that our economy tips over a cliff under higher interest rates and higher inflation, just as it did back in the early 1990s?
Well, it's always important to get that balance right when you are normalising fiscal and monetary policy, particularly after such a sudden and significant economic shock, which is what COVID represented. We have already seen an improvement in the economy, in the labour market, with the unemployment rate at its equal lowest in 48 years at just 4%. And we have brought to an end those emergency economic supports. We are seeing a material improvement in the budget bottom line worth more than $100 billion that I announced just over 2 weeks ago, the fastest fiscal consolidation Australia has seen in more than 70 years. We've got debt as a proportion of the economy peaking more than 5 percentage points lower and 4 years earlier than what was previously forecast. We've got deficits more than halving over the forward estimates as a percentage of GDP, and then more than halving again over the medium term. So we're on the right track. And as you and I both know, Ross, Australian businesses and households have accumulated more than $400 billion on their balance sheets that was not there at the start of the pandemic. That can help cushion some of the blow and can help drive further economic activity, because that's money that will be spent as the saving ratio comes down, as the health restrictions ease, as we've been seeing in recent weeks and months.
OK, there's a lot of stories around at the moment that you yourself are under pressure in the seat of Kooyong, from Monique Ryan. Right now, should we be having a bet on you? Are you a sure thing in that seat, or do you think really there is a struggle on to retain that seat?
Well, it's certainly a tough fight, and I don't take anything for granted in my own electorate. I'm very fortunate to have been elected by my local community at the 4 previous elections. I faced a fake independent last time, Ross. They fancied themselves. They got less than 9% of the vote. This time the dynamic is slightly different because the Greens and the Labor Party are completely running dead. In fact, they're supporting the fake independent. Now, in the case of Monique Ryan, she is a former long-standing member of the Labor Party, something she sought to conceal when she was asked on radio about her political background. She said she had none. In fact, she went as far as to describe herself as a clean skin and someone who was a small L Liberal. Well, that's patently false, because it was revealed that not only after she left the Labor Party, that she was making social media posts promoting the Labor Party, promoting its people. And that is not the sign of someone who is truly independent. These fake independents are only challenging Liberals. They don't have any detailed policies. They don't have any detailed costings. And what is even more concerning is they're not revealing to the local community in Kooyong how they would vote in the event of a hung parliament. Last time round in 2019, the fake independent did say he was going to vote for the Labor Party, and it didn't turn out too well for them. So this time they're trying to keep their cards close to the chest, even though we know they're going to vote with the Labor Party. So the people of Kooyong deserve to know what they're actually voting for and what that person would do in the event of a hung parliament. A hung parliament which becomes all more real if they elect these fake independents. And we've seen this movie before, Ross. It was during the Labor time with Rudd and Gillard and Oakeshott and Windsor, and it was chaos and confusion with the hung parliament. Australians don't need a hung parliament at this time with big economic security issues and big national security issues facing our country.
Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, we appreciate your time today.